Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're joining in from today. Welcome to another live session at the Reactor. Before we get into the session, please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We're all here to learn, so please be respectful, please be kind, ask a lot of good questions. The chat will be open throughout, and we do encourage you all to participate. We're back with another episode of the Endpoint series, and today is the second episode. If you missed out on the first episode, I will be putting a link into the chat so you can have a look at the first episode, which was very great. It was great. It was very engaging. And with that, I'm now going to bring Nicholas and Janik onto the stage and let them take this session away.
Great. Thank you so much, Raf, for the introduction. And Niklas and I, we are very excited to run today our second episode of our Mastering Endpoint Security series. And we are more than happy if you have some questions, put them into the chat, and we try to answer as much as possible of these questions. Our today's sessions is about configuring device security policies. We will guide you how you can start. We will also give you at hand which policies, which guidelines you maybe can follow, and give you some additional advanced tips in this series. In general, the objective of the whole series we run is for IT professionals and security end users who wants to start with Intune, who wants to learn how they can use Intune to harden their environment, to enhance their security in their environment with help of Intune, but also with the services around of Intune. In general, which topics we want to cover. We want to show you how you can deploying security policies. We want to show you how you can use compliance policies to also ensure and enhancing the compliance of your devices and your IT environment, and also how you can protect your organizational data with help of Intune and with help of the whole security services around. Yes. Yes. But before we start, I will introduce myself quickly. My name is Yannick Reinhardt. I mostly focus on AI topics, but I also working on workspace and cloud topics. And I always try to find the bridge of all of these three, and also blog about this topic and try to build also community projects where I can combine them as much as possible. I'm based in Germany. I have a blog, yannickreinhardt.com, where I blog also about these topics. I'm a dual Microsoft MVP in the area security Intune and AI platform, and also owning some Microsoft certifications in general. To talk about my hobbies, I like to make sports, to travel, and also to make community engagements with blogging and speaking. And I'm also available in X or LinkedIn and some other platforms, and I'm more than happy if you have some questions around the whole topics or some topics beyond, if you get in contact with me. And with this, I will hand over to Niklas.
Yeah, thank you, Yannick. So my name is Niklas Olsen. I'm 21 years old. In my daily job, I work as a consultant apprentice. And besides that, I'm also a Microsoft Learn student ambassador. And in my free time, I use a lot of my time diving into Microsoft Intune and endpoint management. I use a lot of my free time as well, blogging about Microsoft Intune and speaking about Intune on conferences like these. And I blog on learnintune.net. And if you would like to get in touch with me, you can find me on X, LinkedIn, or through my blog as well. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions. So the content of today's session is we first going to dive into the importance of security policies. We will talk a little bit about where Microsoft are investing heavily on security. And then we will talk about why security is important, and especially on endpoints as well. Once we've done that, we will talk about how you can create security policies, what are some best practices when you have to assign your security policies, and We will also talk about best practices in general as well when you're creating security policies. And on top of that, we will do some demonstration of creating security policies as well. And once we've done that, we will talk about a very important part of enforcing endpoint security, which is monitoring and reporting. We will show you how you can validate in the Intune portal if your policy has been assigned correctly or not. But we will also show you how you can validate it directly on the device if you're troubleshooting. It could be an issue you are facing on the device itself. But yeah, we will show you some of the monitoring and reporting tools you have within Intune. And lastly, we will cover compliance and access control briefly. The next session on next Wednesday will be mainly about conditional access and compliance policies. So we will only briefly touch on this topic today. But with that, why should we take care about security? So this is indeed a very interesting question. So in a quickly evolving IT world today, we need to do everything we can in order to prevent unauthorized access to our systems. And the hackers out there are mainly targeting the endpoints in our organization, as they are often the easiest entry point into the network. So configuring your endpoint security policies is just more critical than ever. And in my opinion, we need to build security into everything we do. So it's starting by requiring MFA for all users. That should be on default, but also for all admins as well. And with that, together with antivirus and attack surface reduction rules, and of course, security baselines for both Windows clients and Windows servers as well. And I think one of the most difficult topics is that we also need to cover security updates. So that covers all from Windows updates to driver updates to third-party products. So we need to keep Google Chrome updated. We need to keep Adobe Reader updated. So we need to do a lot of work in doing our security updates as well. So basically, the no hackers allowed sign here is a reminder that we need to think security into everything we do today. And Microsoft has done the exact same thing. So we will talk a little bit about the Secure Future Initiative today, because this is actually a really interesting topic as well. So Microsoft has created the Secure Future Initiative, where they are stating that they will put security first. And when we are talking about the Secure Future Initiative, there are three very important principles: secure by design, secure by default, and secure operations as well. So basically, all this means is that they will put security first into everything they do. And we should do the same thing as partners and customers. So that's a very important piece as well. And just to cover some of the things that they are looking into is protecting identities and secrets, protect tenants and isolate production systems, protect networks, protect engineering systems as well. And monitor and detect threats should also be something that you're doing in your environment as well, because it's very critical that we are actually monitoring the current threats in our environment as well. And on top of that, we need to accelerate the response and remediation when something happens in our environment as well. But yeah, take a look at the Secure Future Initiative. You cannot click on the link here on the slide, but a link to the Secure Future Initiative will also be in the chat as well. But take a look at it. It's a very interesting read as well. So why is security on our endpoints important? So basically, when we're talking about endpoints, I'm talking about laptops, desktops, mobile devices across all different platforms. And those are really critical assets because, as I mentioned before, those are often targeted by attackers as well. So if you have a lot of people working remotely or on personally owned devices, endpoints are just vulnerable and often less secure. So we have to do everything in our power to protect our endpoints, even though they are personally owned or company owned. We need to make sure that our company data are protected. So Microsoft has created this March Green log data graph. So as you can see here, tech scams has increased from 2021 to 2023, where it started off with 5 million, and then it's increased to 8 million, and lastly it has increased to 12 million as well. So as you can see, there is a very high increase in tech scams, but also when we are talking about malware and phishing attacks as well, there is a high increase of those attack types as well. So it's very important to think about that you have to maintain security on your endpoints, because there is a lot of increasing in attacks. So this overview is just to give you an idea how important it is to protect your endpoints as well. And if you haven't used Microsoft Smart Screen before, I would highly encourage you to look into that as well. And just to put a little bit extra on why security is important for our endpoints, we will just briefly cover some of the things from the Microsoft Digital Defense Report. As an example here, Microsoft has lined up the current threats we are currently facing. So technical debt. So we probably all have technical debt in our environment somehow, but it's very important to make sure that we are looking into it and try to optimize it along the way. And as well as AI is also becoming a threat. It's something that nearly all of us are using. So think AI as a threat is also a very important piece. And cyber criminals as well, conflicting requirements, supply chain and ecosystem, nation state actors as well. And Microsoft has also in this report lined up some of the investments they have done in AI red teams, digital crimes, digital safety, incident response. So again, if you haven't read this one, I would definitely recommend you to do so. The link is here on the slides, but it will also be available for you in the chat as well afterwards. So take a look at the Secure Future Initiative, or as well the Digital Defense Report as well, because I think Yannick can agree with me that those two here are really interesting reads as well. So Yannick, so how can Intune help us in this journey?
Yes, this is now the important point. I think Niklas showed you why you should take attention on the whole topic. Security is a must, and security is also one of the first thing what you should look into when you set up a new environment. And I will show you which role Intune plays and how Intune can help you to harden your devices and also extend the security in your whole environment, especially on your endpoints. In the end, what you see here in this graphic is more or less the steps or the different things what you should do when you enroll or when you set up a new enrollment for devices. And the important thing is, before you start to enroll your devices, make sure that the configurations are set in Intune, and the most important configurations are the security configurations. And we will show you in the next slide which tools you have to do this, but also how you can do this, because as already mentioned multiple times, it's important, and you should took attention to this topic. It's very important to do this. Good. Yeah. How can you secure your endpoints with Intune? In the end, you have multiple things what you can took in consideration. One is the zero trust approach. This is something what changed with the new technologies, what the cloud also provides you. You can implement zero trust. This means you always control is this device is all the compliance of this device given? Is everything as it is expected before you allow access to your company and also to your company data? Because these are your crown jewels you want to protect. The next thing is protect your organization for threats. In the end, when you look at the press, you always see there are a lot of attacks of big companies. Also, the big companies are not out of the whole game. This means the companies extend their security, but also the hackers learn and also extend their capabilities. And this is something what we have to do every day to protect our organization, to have no data loss, to have no productivity loss, but also to don't risk downtimes in the whole thing. This is also a very important thing. The next thing is to control also the access. When you access sensible data, you have to extend the mechanism, what you can do to check if a user is allowed to see this document, if all the conditions are given, to open, for example, this document when it's, for example, strictly confidential data. The next thing, what is also important part, is to guarantee always the compliance of your devices, but also the compliance of your company. And when the compliance is not given, you should implement some remediation to fix this as soon as possible. And in the ideal case, always proactive instead of reactive. Also, this is something what you should look into, but also where Intune can help you to do this. Yes, which role does Intune play in the whole policy management? We already showed this slide really quick in our first episode, but in the end, Intune has here a fundamental role, a central platform where you can configure your policies, you can administrate them, you can deploy them. And the good thing is you cannot deploy them only to Windows, you can deploy them on a bunch of different operating systems like macOS, iOS, Android, and much more. This means you can manage your mobile devices as well as your workplace devices in one platform. And this is a big win because you can guarantee the compliance and the security of your whole fleet. Also, Intune is fully integrated in the whole Microsoft ecosystem, like EntreID, which supports features like conditional access, where we will also deep dive in our next session. But I think also in the end, we will talk a bit about this. Conditional access is also a fundamental thing to protect your organizational data, but also your devices. And for and also, yeah, you have some more integration, like integrations to Defender, that also these both tools can talk with each other. Intune can, for example, help to roll out the client, and also can receive signals or forward signals to the Defender suite. Also, this is a nice thing, and you have an also big bunch of reporting capabilities to always see the current state of your security of your fleet. Yeah, but where can you create the security policies? This is something what we want to show you now, how you can do this. In the end, you have different possibilities. You have device security policies, you have configuration profiles, you have app protection policies, you have endpoint securities. This means there are different objects. How you can do this, or which you have available in Intune. And this is in the end a thing what you first have to understand where you can find what, but in the end you have a big toolbox which help you to create all your configurations to harden your devices. But also what you have to know is you have for some of this configs also two places where you can do this. This means some of these configurations you can took in Intune, but the same configuration you can also do in the security.microsoft.com Defender portal. This means both tools speak with each other, and also here you have two places where you can see and also configure your objects. Yes. The next thing, what is also important, how you assign your profiles. In the end, what you should not do, this is a recommendation from us, is to create your own all devices or all user groups. If you want to do this, there are some virtual groups which are already available in the portal. You see it. You can select here add all users or add all devices. You should not rebuild it. But in the end, when you only want to target some objects to a defined set of devices, You can create groups in Enter-ID. Also, both systems are connected. And here you can create static groups where you manually add the devices or the user, or you can create dynamic groups which are calculated based on some attributes like, for example, the operating system version, and then the devices lands in this group, and you can use this to target your configurations to these groups. Also another big question where you should always be aware of. You have two ways how you can assign your configurations. You can assign them to the user, and this means this policy, this configuration, also this app will also travel with the user. This means if a user log in multiple devices, this configuration or this application will also land here, or you can also assign this to one device or to device group, and then it stays on the device, and it's also applicable for all users which log into this device. This is important to know. We have here, for example, one of example for a configuration where it makes sense to assign this to a user, like the folder forwarding in OneDrive. This makes sense because it affects the user. OneDrive is also something what is related to a user, and here we recommend, for example, to make this assignment to the user, but also some other, mostly the security configurations. You want to harden the device, and then you also should assign this to this device. This means this is a question you should always ask yourself when you create new profiles. Yes, here also some other more high-level examples how we want to do our assignments, like compliance and conditional access. This is something what you should do user-based because you want to validate the user. If a user is allowed to access a specific resource, here we don't recommend to do this device-based. For configuration profiles, if it is a kiosk device, this means in kiosk device, we always talk about the device itself. We not have a strong relation to users. And here it makes sense to make it device-based, but the most of other configurations, it makes sense to make it user-based. As already mentioned, it always depends which configuration it is. This means you should also ask this question. And for applications, also it depends. You should everything what is core application, what is also important to guarantee the security or your operation. Here you can think about to make this assignment device-based, but everything what has a relation to the user and is a user-specific app, it makes sense to make this assignment also to the user. Also here for kiosk devices, for example, here you can also assign the apps which are needed to the device. Yes, to give you something at hand, how you can start with configuring your security configurations, there's a nice community project, this Open Intune baseline. This is, as already mentioned, open source. This means there are multiple people who contribute to this project, and it's a solid foundation if you want to configure or if you want to have a starting point for your security configuration. We can highly recommend to check this out, this repository, and also maybe make a comparison with your configuration if you forget something. Yes, and this is actively maintained. This means if there are a new Windows version where some new settings comes in, also this will be reflected in this repository. This is a very good resource for starting with the whole topic. Yes, and now we also have a short video where we want to demonstrate how you can create a configuration in Intune. In the end, you can find the whole configuration section in devices. Then you can go to configuration, Here you see what is already available in your tenant. If you go to create and create new policies, you can select then the operating system. If it's for a mobile device or if it's for Windows. In this case, we select Windows. Here you have templates, configuration templates, or the setting catalog. I think in the setting catalog, you can find the most important settings, what you need. This is a new approach. You give the whole thing a name, click to next, and then you can select add setting. And what you see here, this is a very rich catalog. This means you find very a lot of configurations, depending what you want to do. And in this case, we want to configure Google Chrome. We select Google Chrome, and you will see on the button section here, you can find all the available settings. In this case, we select one. It's allow user feedback. We select this setting, and you can also multi-select if you want to create more than one configuration. We can disable, enable this. In this case, we want to enable this setting, make group tags, scope tags, if needed. We assign this to all users, that every user get this configuration, or we can also do the same to all devices. But in this case, we do all users. We can also exclude. This means we can start to assign this to every user, and then we can say only this group should not get this configuration. This is also what we did here to select the autopilot group. And when this is done, you can review it and create this configuration profile. And you see in the end, it's very easy. You have a catalog where you only have to select what you need. And with this, I will hand over again to Niklas, who will show you how the device check-in works and which possibilities you also have here.
Yeah, so as Yannick are mentioning, enforcing security policies on our endpoints is very important. But when we're talking about this specific topic, we cannot get around not talking about device check-in, because this is a very critical part in the process of devices receiving the policies as well. So when we're talking about device checking, when a device gets joined to Microsoft Intune, so this is for all join types, hybrid join, Asiati join, and registered as well, it will check in with a service. So basically, it's doing so because it needs to receive the policies, the compliance policies, the applications that we have assigned to this device. So normally a device check-in will happen every 8 hours, but for a recently enrolled device, it will happen a little bit more often in order to make the device ready faster as well. So for a recently enrolled device, you can see here that a recently enrolled Windows 10 or 11 device will check in every 3 minutes for 15 minutes, and then every 15 minutes for 2 hours. And lastly, it will go back to the normal check-in time, which is every 8 hours. So this is just to get the device ready faster, but also to make sure that our devices are secure as fast as possible. So a check-in can happen for multiple of reasons. It can be initiated by the system through a scheduled task, but it can also actually be initiated by the user or an IT admin. So the user can open company portal, press sync, but the user can also go to access work and school and press sync from there as well. And the IT admin can go to Intune, press sync, and from there on, the device will start syncing again. And I think a very important thing to mention when we're talking about device check-in is that the check-in process is relying on internet. And it's also important to mention that Intune is a cloud service. So the devices are relying on an internet connection in order to perform the check-in. So if the device don't have internet at the moment, it needs to do a check-in. It will do that once it gets the connection again. But we have other tools available in order to make sure that our devices are kept in a desired state, even though it doesn't have internet connection, which is something Yannick will cover later on. But just to give you guys an idea of the possibilities for a user. So how can the user initiate the sync? So the user can search for the company portal and click sync this device. but the user can also search for access work or school, unfold the connected by, and press info. And from there on, the user can see the device sync status category. And this will briefly tell the user what's happening when they're pressing sync. So this will keep security policies, network profiles, and managed applications up to date. But the user can also see if the sync was successful or not, and also the time and date when the sync has last attempted. So what the user needs to do is just to click on the little sync button here, and then the device will perform a check-in with Intune as well. So that's basically how the user can initiate a check-in as well. So back to another important thing, reporting, because when we are enforcing endpoint security policies, we would like to make sure that our endpoint policies are assigned correctly on our devices and are not conflicting with another policy, or maybe even erroring because of an admin error as well. So basically within Intune, we can go to a specific policy and then generate a report. And then we can see high level, how many has actually successfully assigned this policy, how many devices have a conflicting policy, and how many devices gets an error as well. And then we can see pending, not applicable, and the total count of devices. But if we would like to dive a little bit more into the details, we can actually go and see the specific device name. We can see the last active user, but we can also see the assignment status for the specific device as well. But also, if you would like to search for a specific device, the last active user, that's also possible. So you have this option on the policies as well. So if you're coming from an on-prem world where you are used to just deploying group policies, this is a total another thing, because you will get the reporting opportunity within Intune as well. And you also have the possibility to go to a device directly and then click on device configuration. And from here, you can see all the policies that has been assigned to the device. It will also mention the logged in user, and then it will mention the specific policy type. And lastly, it will mention the state of the policy. Is it succeeded? Is it conflicting with another policy? Is it getting an error? So here is the option to see it on a specific device and all the policies in total as well. So you don't have to look at individual policies. And just to give you an idea about how an IT admin can look on a device. So if you are an IT admin currently troubleshooting, it could be a policy that are causing some issues. You can actually look on the local device and go to Access Work and School. And from there on, you can actually do the same thing as before. Unfold this one, press info. And within here, you can create an advanced diagnostic report, which will create a report in the public user underneath the public documents. And then it has created an MDM diagnostics folder. And under this folder, we have a new file, a new HTML file containing all the information. So we get the device information, we get some connection information, even the certificates, we can see the MDM certificates as well. And also we can see all our policies and our managed policies as well. So this will give you, as an IT admin, some great input if you are currently troubleshooting locally on a device. But let's say that you don't have access to this device. So what you can do as well is log into the Intune portal, go to the specific device, and then you can click on Collect Diagnostics in the top here. And once you've done that, you can go to the left side here and go to Device Diagnostics, where all the files will be in a zip folder that you can download on your computer, and then you can take a look at the logs on your own device without interacting with the user. Be aware this option will take a little bit of time. It's not instant, so it will have a little bit of waiting time before it arrives in the portal. And other than reporting, we also have compliance policies, as me and Yannick are covering a whole lot more in the next session next week. But just to cover it briefly, so for our security policies, we would like a method in order to make sure that our devices are in a good state. So we would like to make sure our devices are healthy. So let's say we have deployed some security policies, we have deployed some policies for BitLocker, firewall perhaps, but also antivirus and anti-spyware. So with compliance policies, we can actually say we need BitLocker to be required, we need secure boot to be required, but also things such as firewall to be required. So this gives us an option to make sure that those things are enabled on the device. And if the device doesn't have one of these features enabled, it will, in this case, immediately send an email notification to the end user with the information that the user needs to contact the IT help desk and fix this issue. But if they don't do that within 5 days, the device will be marked as non-compliant, as you can see here. And you might think, what will happen if the device gets non-compliant? So as Yannick mentioned before, Intune are interacting with a lot of great other services, such as EnterID. And with EnterID, you can create conditional access policies. And with that, you can actually create a policy that require the device to be marked as compliant. So if you have a non-compliant device in your environment, you can actually block access to company data if the device is non-compliant. So there's a lot of great tools in the toolbox, I would say, to keep your devices secure. It's just to make sure to use them. So yeah, that's another way of enforcing security policies. So Yannick, there's also other tools available, even though I can't really believe it, but there is other tools.
Yes, we also have more, and this is something what we also want to look into now. What else you can do to guarantee the security of your devices. For sure, Niklas already said you need handling when a device, for example, is not compliant, but how you can do this. You also have a very strong tool. This not only helps you for enforcing the compliance, it also helps you much more to also extend end user experience and stuff like this. It's named Endpoint Analytics Remediation Scripts. This is a very strong tool, or in the meantime, it's not longer part of Endpoint Analytics. It was moved to the device section. And with this tool, you have two things. One is a detection script. This you can assign to your devices, and then a PowerShell script will be run. And then you have monitoring, reporting, where you see how many devices fulfill this script, which has an exit of successful, or how many of your devices have an exit of not successful. And here you can, for example, see how many crashes you have of specific applications, or you can report more or less everything. But you can also report stuff like to see if a specific agent is installed on a device and if it's activated. And if this is not the case, if this condition, what you said in the PowerShell script, is not fulfilled, you can also create a remediation script, and this will be triggered when this condition is not met. And with this remediation script, you can directly fix this issue on the device without interacting of service desk or interacting of an end user. And this is a very strong way how you can enforce specific things on your devices. If something is not met, if the detection is not fulfilled, you can push out a remediation and your issue is gone. And as already mentioned, it's not only for security, you can also use it for the end user experience to make sure that issues what a user may face are fixed directly when they appear. But for this, you also have a license requirement to use this feature. What you need is a E3, E5, A3, A5 user, or also a VDA per user license that you can use it in the end. This means this is a prerequisite to work with remediation scripts. Yes, and if you want to start with remediation script, we also have a resource we can give you at hand. It's the Endpoint Analytics Remediation Scripts repository. It's hosted on my GitHub. I think it's the largest remediation script repository out in the field. We also have here a lot of different contributors who brings their script in. Everything is validated. This means every script which is in was checked and is verified, and you can also use this as idea to see how remediation scripts works. But the most of the scripts you can also copy paste if you want to fix a specific issue or a specific case. What you can find in this repository, you can copy this into your tenant and also apply this in your environment. Yes, but the second thing, and also this is a very strong tool, what you can use, or it's more or less a configuration, it's the config refresh. This config refresh, you can also configure via Intune. You can say what is the refresh interval, where also if a device is offline, but also if a device is online, both cases are supported. All the policies will be refreshed and make sure that the desired state is set. This means if there's a drift of a specific configuration, it will also, with this case, remediate it to your desired state, what you configured in your Intune tenant. Also, this is a great thing, and it's also very worth to check out. And also it helps to make sure that all your configurations are really set on the devices and there are no unintended changes of them.
So we have talked a little bit about how you can actually secure your endpoints, but when we should probably talk a little bit about how you can secure your internal environment as well. So just to give you guys an idea about what we can do. So first of all, as Yannick and I mentioned earlier, conditional access policies is just a must in today's IT world. So the basic policies should be require MFA for all users and admins. And once that's done, you can start building on top with other policies. So you can build a policy that require devices to be marked as compliant. Otherwise, they can't access company data. But also for IT admins, we have something called role-based access control, RBAC. And basically what this means is that you can create a custom role or use the built-in roles to give IT admins the access they need and only the access they need. So I can say already that not all admins need global administrator. So you can use some of the built-in roles or build a role yourself to give the access needed for the specific use case. And we also have the scope tags as well. So with the scope tags in Intune, we can assign a scope tag to policies and applications. So let's say that we have a Danish IT help desk, and the Danish IT help desk only needs to be able to modify the policies and applications for the Danish devices. That's how scope tags can be used. And the same goes for if you have an US help desk, and the US help desk only needs to access and modify the policies that are for the US devices. So that's basically how scope tags can be used as well. And then we have the multi-admin approval. So with multi-admin approval, we can make sure that if there are any changes in the environment, that we get a second set of eyes on it. Because sometimes, even though we try the best we can, sometimes we make errors. And the multi-admin approval helps us make sure that our configuration changes or new configurations are verified by a second admin as well. So this makes sure that, or at least try to do less damage in a production environment. So hopefully some of the errors can be catched already before getting deployed as well. So that's basically some of the tools you can use in order to secure your Intune environment. So we've come to an end today. So the summary of today's session is we've talked about why security is important and some of the investments that Microsoft are doing as well. Then we have covered security policies and how you can make sure to enforce the security policies. We've covered monitoring and reporting, which is indeed very critical part of deploying security policies as well. Then we've covered other tools to enforce security policies. So we've talked about the Open Intune baseline, and we've talked about Yannick's remediation scripts as well. And then we've talked about how you can assign your policies. Why is it important that you assign a policy to users instead of devices? And we've talked about the best practices in order to assign your policies as well. And lastly, we've talked about how you can secure your Intune environment with conditional access policies, RBAC roles, scope tags for Intune as well. And then we've covered multi-admin approval. So I think we have been around a lot today. So if you are interested in watching the next session specifically only about compliance and conditional access policies, watch out for next week, where we will be with our next session on the 20th of November. So go ahead and take a look at the next episode on aka.ms/endpoint security series. And I think the only thing we have to say is thank you for joining today.
Thank you so much.
If you have any questions or anything.
I think we have one question in the chat. Should I read it out? Do you also use an application to push baselines from a multi-tenant management tool like Simon Cloud or something else? Should I answer? Do you want, Niklas?
I think it kind of comes back to what kind of, if you are a consultant company and managing multiple tenants, it might make sense to use a multi-tenant management tool. But if you are sitting inside an internal IT department, there has also actually become a new feature available where you can import policies as a JSON format, right? And also other community tools out there you can use. I don't know if you have anything to add, Yannick.
Yeah, in the end, when you push out configurations with an application, you also lose in this kind all the advantages we also showed you with reportings and all this stuff. This means I can really give you the hint, do this with native objects to create configurations in your tenant. And as Niklas said, if you want to manage multiple tenants, there are good community tools out in the field, but there are also some commercial tools to do this on the right way. But I would not recommend to push configurations with applications to the devices.
So I think there's another question as well. Also, you can see the error and also check the event log. Yeah, the event log will give a lot of great information about what's happening on the device and stuff like that. And I think there's also another one. You mean that normally a policy is only pushed once and with config refresh it will reapply. So what's happening normally is that a policy is assigned from Intune, and then it's not getting refreshed on every check-in, but with check-ins, new policies are pushed and make sure that the device are kept in a desired state. But with config refresh, it will reapply the policies locally on the device. So it checks the local on the device, the policies from a cache, and then it will reapply the policies from that cache locally on the device. So this means that config refresh will not use Intune for reapplying the policies, but it will use the local cache on the device itself. So that's why it's working without internet connection.
Yes. Would you use filters greater than dynamic groups? A tricky question. In the end, it depends. Filters are more efficient, definitely. When you want to you build a bigger group and then you filter out, use filters to lower the amount of the devices of the users based on a specific criteria. And as already mentioned, it's much faster than to use a dynamic group, because to process a dynamic group, it's very resource consumed. It consumes a lot of resources on Microsoft side. This means you can also expect delays, and you can also when there are some changes, this means this can also affect this due to this time delay. This means if it's possible, use filters and make your assignments simpler. but also dynamic groups has a clear part. For example, when you want to assign your autopilot profiles with dynamic groups where you use the product ID, the group tag of the devices here, you have to do this with dynamic groups, because in this phase filters are not supported. This means there's not a clear guidance, yes and no, but for sure filters are stronger than dynamic groups, I would say.
Yeah, I
Niklas,
think
something to add here?
I think Yannick is saying a lot of great things, but if you have to think like about it in a really high overview, is that filters is something that belongs in Intune, and dynamic groups is something that happens in intro-ID, and that's why, as Yannick are mentioning, the processing time are a lot faster for filters than it is for dynamic groups.
Yes. Good. The next question is, what happens to the settings configured by policies after we unlike the policy? Will the continue to stay or roll back to the original state? Good question.
Yeah, I think I can say, if you've worked with group policy objects, a lot of group policies would actually get, I'm saying, tattooed. But once you unlinked a group policy, it will normally stay on the device. But what happens, I'm saying, with most Intune policies, there can be exceptions. But with most Intune policies, once you've unlinked a policy and removed the assignments, it will get away from the device and get removed from the device. I'm saying, with a few exceptions, there is probably some policies you can find out that will stay on the device, even though it's by Intune.
This is also one reason, also important when you go from an on-premise environment to a cloud environment. I can really recommend, don't make a copy-paste of your group policies. It's better to start from scratch and translate them into a native configuration or settings catalog profiles, and really think about, is it really needed? Because in the modern world, you should also think about what is important, that my devices are secure and hardened, and this is something you should definitely configure, but also don't overstress this and make the devices a bit more leaner. Also, this is important when you go from the on-prem to the cloud journey, that you get rid, if possible, from group policies and use these native objects.
Yeah, I mean, we are talking in the future, and when we're talking about the future, we and Microsoft as well would like to see more cloud native devices. So at some point in the future, we should be able to move the majority of our devices to cloud native as well. So we will make sure to, at some point at least, not migrate our group policy objects, but create some new policies within Intune as well.
Yes. Good. With this, I think we have no further questions in the chat. And again, many thanks for participating in this session. And if you are interested in conditional access, what we mentioned multiple times already, if you want to learn what's behind this, you can join our session next week, same time, same day, where we talk more in deep about conditional access. And with this, again, thank you, and back to you, Raf.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks.